What's going on, guys? And if you're watching this video, you're probably doing online arbitrage or retail arbitrage, and you're trying to understand how to get into wholesale and why wholesale needs to be a priority in 2026. Making that shift is so crucial, and there's risks by you continuing to run an online arbitrage business. So let's kind of go over it and jump into it now. I'm currently on a seller store that clearly does online arbitrage. Jellycat, a big online arbitrage product right now. People are buying it at Nordstrom or at other sites, or maybe jellycat.com. Maybe they're using a Rakuten or a gift card to get a percentage off. With online arbitrage and retail arbitrage, you're always going to be hit with some sort of order limit. So you can only buy 5 pieces here. And the other thing is trying to even get ungated in online arbitrage items. But you might be already experienced doing online arbitrage and you say, hey, Alex, this is kind of what I do, but how do I actually transition from doing what I'm doing to actually getting involved in wholesale? And what I would say for those that are looking to transition from online arbitrages to wholesale is that it's easier than you think. You don't have to take this massive leap into jumping into online arbitrage. You can continue what you're doing, but I think the more important thing to understand is that there is risk involved in what you are currently doing right now. If you're an arbitrage seller looking to transition to wholesale, I put together a free strategy session where I walk you through exactly how to do it. So link is in the description and I'll see you there. For example, this typology tinted serum with vitamin C. There's going to be a time where Typology files a trademark infringement against these 22 sellers that's going to directly affect and impact your account health. These are things that shouldn't be taken lightly. The importance of having direct supply chain through major wholesale distribution or brand direct is more crucial than ever. And playing this kind of game is like playing roulette. You don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to run a business like that. Same with all of these other products we're seeing. At what point does Jellycat come in and say, you know what, we're going to kick out all these people off the listing and just sell it ourselves? We're going to knock down all these 29 sellers and sell the inventory ourselves because we're concerned about the authenticity of the sellers on the listing. This is a reality for online arbitrage sellers. And in this video, we're going to be going over step by step on how to make that transition over to wholesale. Now, the first thing I tell all online arbitrage people that I personally work with is that you don't need the best wholesale distributors to get started. You don't need to be working with these massive distributors that require a 300K minimum yearly purchase. You can very well start working with smaller distributors that maybe has a little bit higher pricing than some of the distributors we work with, but that's the entry point. You know, I'm going to be going over a handful of examples just from my experience. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and follow me on Instagram at FBA Boys. But the first thing I would be doing if I was doing online arbitrage is I would be focusing on local distributors. So we're going to jump into Google right now. So let's go health and household distributors. Now, a couple things we need to understand in these situations is vetting these suppliers. So we have Supermarket Distributors of America. Definitely a good starting point. Their minimum order is $1,000. The biggest thing you're going to want to understand is looking and obtaining that price list, making sure that price list has UPCs with case pricing or item pricing. Super important that we have that. And your goal is to truly open up as many accounts as possible, not just Supermarkets of America, but companies like Bilo Beauty. Bilo Beauty was one of our first wholesale distributors that we worked with. We used to buy an OGX product, let me pull it up, OGX, and we used to bundle the 25 ounce that discontinued with the shampoo conditioner combo. And we made great money off that SKU, and we had a great relationship with our sales rep there. And it was a good relationship. Did they have the best pricing? No. But was it manageable? 100%. Another example of just opening up as many accounts. I'm from New Jersey. I'm from this area, so we've always worked with local New Jersey vendors. Bilo Beauty, upstate New York. Someone like Lee Distributors, another vendor. Now, funny story about Lee is that we were buying from them for years, and we still buy a little bit from them. But we found another vendor that just had slightly better pricing, and we started moving our business over to that vendor. But Lee worked and still works for the longest time. You don't need the best suppliers to get started in wholesale. You do not need the best suppliers to get into wholesale. You need suppliers. That's what you need. The best pricing and all that stuff comes down to the relationship. You know, how is your relationship with your sales reps? How often are you placing orders with them? What type of communication do you have with them? These are all crucial steps in order to start transitioning over from an online retail arbitrage business to a wholesale business that has that sustainability, that has that ability to be built over years. I am not worried about what next month looks like because we reorder the same products from the same distributors and brands every single month. Now, my honest opinion of what you need to do transitioning from online arbitrage to wholesale is simply start to open up these accounts. Start to get a price list from Buy Low Beauty. Start to get a price list from lead distributors. Start opening up as many accounts as possible and start analyzing their inventory, those catalogs. Start leveraging scanning softwares like Third-Party Profits to find the opportunity. If you guys aren't using Third-Party Profits, I have a 30-day link down below. Now, Third-Party Profits is our sourcing tool that we take a catalog file and we're able to scan that entire file and find what opportunities, what products work on that file. So we're able to load up a KHE file and go through that file and basically cherry pick the best inventory in there. So step one is opening up those wholesale accounts and those supplier accounts. Step two is using a scanning software to start finding those opportunities. Now, the real thing that you need to understand is that wholesale pricing changes depending on the relationship you have. When you're opening up, let's say a Buy Low or a lead distributors, you're gonna get a kind of a regular price list. Now, it's not until you start maybe buying a little more volume, maybe start having better conversations with your sales reps, where you're gonna start to see discounts, where you're gonna be able to get certain discounts on certain lines. We're gonna have that open communication of saying, hey, you know, we would love to take 200 pieces. I don't know, instead of giving it to us for $9.25, if you can do $8.50, we could take 250 pieces at $8.50. Is that something we can work out? You need to start having those conversations because that's what's going to allow you to make this transition and make this transition make sense. Now, the first thing I always tell people is you need to build out your base of distribution. So many people want to go from online arbitrage to brand direct. Now, this is why that doesn't work. Brand direct is a more advanced sourcing strategy. You need to have a baseline of distributors and relationships with those accounts because it's funny how it works. We've had sales reps that have introduced us to specific brands where we've had conversations. I've even had a sales rep that basically said, hey, Alex, I'm actually leaving this company, but I want to give you my direct contact to the brand that you've been buying. Next thing you know, I'm buying from the brand $5 cheaper than distribution. That is the impact of going through distribution first, setting yourself up through distribution. You need to get the lay of the land with distribution. You just jumping into brands, yeah, it can be good, but it's also a lot more difficult to open up brand accounts than actually opening up distributor accounts. Brands are going to immediately say, hey, no, are you selling on Amazon? No Amazon sellers. Where distributors, some will say no Amazon sellers, but there's ways to get in the door with distributors that is much easier than going through brands. And it all depends on the level of the brand that you're focused on. If you're focusing on brands that are $10,000 a month in revenue, those are going to be easier brands to open up accounts with. But if you're focusing on brands that are doing $250,000 a month through Amazon, those are going to be higher barrier entry brands to get a hold of. Now, your better option with a lot of the times we've been denied by the brands and we've purchased through distribution. This is where distribution comes into play. Now, something I would also recommend for you guys that are transitioning from OA to wholesale is focus within a specific niche. If you're going to be focusing on grocery, open up as many grocery accounts as possible. Why? because you're able to compare pricing across multiple different accounts. So let's say you have a KE account open, a price list. Then you have a Unify account opened. Now you're able to compare pricing on the same products. These companies sometimes have these same exact products, but at different pricing. So you could place a purchase order with KE for a specific brand and then Unify for another brand because Unify had a better price on that inventory. So opening up as many accounts within the same niche is going to give you that advantage. We just saw this with a student of mine, Coda. Coda came in 2 months. He basically doubled his revenue. He's doing retail arbitrage. He came in, he transitioned to wholesale. He put in a $30,000 wholesale order recently. Now, how we were able to do it is that he was actually leveraging brands that he was familiar with from retail arbitrage. And he was able to use that leveraging point that he knows the cost at the retail and the discount stores that he's going to then negotiate his wholesale pricing based on that pricing. Because originally the wholesaler wanted $4 for the item and he was able to get down to $2.80 because he's seen that price at discount retail stores for $2.60. So he's leveraging that information to start opening up accounts and negotiating with those accounts because he has a reference point. If you have a reference point, use it. That is why I tell people open up multiple accounts. Open up 5 different grocery accounts so you can compare pricing across all 5 accounts. And then go through that cycle. Put them through third party. Start drafting your purchase order. Start submitting it and then sending that inventory to either a prep center or potentially your house. Depends on what their rules are. Sometimes if you are dealing with an issue where they only ship to commercial address, talk about you scheduling your own freight. You could say, hey, we schedule our own freight. We have great freight prices with our brokers. Schedule the pickup that goes directly to your house. Central Transport will deliver to residential from commercial. We just have to think a little bit outside the box when we're in these early stages. Or you just send it to a prep center, which I have plenty of people that, some of my students who just send their inventory to prep. You just got to make sure you're sourcing the right inventory. Grocery is hard to send over to prep because that prep fee of 75 cents hurts more on a lower priced product. Or if you're selling a $60 item, that 75 cents doesn't really hurt you when you're running a 16-17% margin on a $60 item. So it's super important to factor when you need to ship items to prep or when it's better to try to ship inventory to your house. Now, why grocery? Grocery, I believe, is the easiest barrier of entry to getting into wholesale. It is easier to open up grocery accounts. Grocery accounts have 30,000 plus different line items that you can source from, and then you slowly start transitioning out of grocery into other categories. But it's super important that you start in one niche. Become an expert in one niche. Know pricing on a specific, let's say, like Dave's Black Beans. I'm forgetting if it's Dave's, but if Dave's Black Beans is at KeHE for $2.19, but then Unify has it at $1.98, now we have a reference point. If we never opened up the second account, we never would have had a reference point to see if there's better pricing from another supplier. So don't just think, all right, I'm going to jump into wholesale, I'm going to open up one account and I'm going to start making money. No, we need to be able to compare pricing across multiple different distributors. Now, if they tell you, hey, we don't accept Amazon sellers, it's going to happen. You need to understand that that is a good account that you need to lean in on. You need to lean in on those opportunities. That means there is barrier there. That means behind that barrier is opportunity. Now, also with online arbitrage sellers, a lot of them get concerned about, well, what about ungating? If you are buying from a national distributor account, KeHE, a Unify, an Emery Jensen, that invoice is going to be sufficient enough to ungate. So the steps are really moving like this. It's make sure, again, you have your resale certificate, New Jersey's ST3 form, so you're tax exempt. Open up a wholesale account. Request a catalog with UPC and pricing. Throw it through a scan software. Build out a working purchase order. Submit the purchase order. Ship it to residential or a prep center, depending on the vendor. And then make sure your repricer's dialed in. Just like you use a repricer or online arbitrage, you need to make sure your repricer's in. Your mins, your maxes, your margin, your minimum margin. All of that stuff is super important to have dialed in. And then you sell through that inventory. You use tools like third-party seller board to predict when you're going to stock out, and then you place appropriate purchase orders to make sure you don't stock out on that inventory. At the end of the day, it's not rocket science. And this is what you need to be doing if you are going to be taking this seriously. If you want to build an Amazon business that isn't going to disappear due to an Amazon suspension, the focus needs to be wholesale and brand direct. That's what it is. If you're having fun and doing a little online retail arbitrage and you're playing the game, that only lasts so long. You need to start building a real business, and wholesale and brand direct is where you do it. So, hope you guys got a lot of value out of this video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hey, if you got value from this and you want me to personally map out your transition plan, book a free call using the link in the description. We're going to look at your current Amazon business and build a custom path to wholesale and brand direct. I'll see you on the call.